So the other day I was watching Suiji's 16-star world record, the 1435, and I was thinking, wow, this run was ahead of its time. He was over 15 seconds ahead of second place in a 14-minute speedrun. That's gotta be one of the most dominant runs in speedrunning. Then I paused for a minute. I wonder what a 15-second lead is equivalent to in another game. So I came up with a quick formula. I'm gonna call it the domination percentage. That essentially measures how far ahead the world record holder for a speedrun is compared to the runner-up. You basically just take the difference in time between the first and second place runner and divide that by second place time, which will give you just a percentage. Now, this formula doesn't take into account a lot of things and definitely comes up short measuring certain speed games. For example, any game with a lot of cutscenes or downtime like Super Paper Mario will be unfairly punished by the index. And the same goes with games where the optimal strategy most of the time is to just hold down one button. This screws over who is, in my opinion, one of the greatest players in speedrunning history, Nifsky and his SMB1 world record, since even though the time saves are extremely difficult and impressive, they don't really save all too much time compared to the larger run as a whole. But even with all its flaws, I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't interested in what this formula had to produce. So I took a bunch of popular speed games I knew, took their current world records and runner-ups, threw it into the formula, and it produced this. On the left you'll see the quote-unquote domination percentage. This chart is pretty self-explanatory. Let's get into the actual records. I've decided to divide these points up into a few categories. You got the close records, you got the pull-aheads, and then the real dominant world records. But let's initially take a quick look at the first tier, the close competitions. Here you'll find games like my native speedrun, Refunct, with a score of 0.03%, where a lot of the run is centered around precision, exact movements as if you were following a racing line. But just like racing, every single tenth of a second is critical, and at the top level it comes down to hundredths of a second, so this record doesn't really rank up there too high. Here also lies that 1435 by Green Suiji, with only really a 6-second lead on second place. Honestly, Slippery Nip has done an amazing job catching up to this world record to this point, since the record score was originally up to 1.7%, but through a ton of runs, Slippery Nip pushed it all the way down to 0.6%. At the lowest end of this tier, and the run with the lowest domination percentage of every run, is Portal 2 No SLA record, with less than a second separating the top two runners in a 55-minute speedrun, ending this with a score of 0.01%. And at the higher end, just barely missing out on the next tier, you've got the Mario Odyssey Any Percent run, at an over 30-second lead in a 56-minute run, with a 0.91 in our domination percentage. In the next tier, we have the pullaways. Now, these are starting to be the runs that I was looking for, like here on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, where Summoning Salt pulls a whole 1.48% lead on second place. I don't know about you, but that's my goat right there. In this tier, you'll find records like the 1-star record, Hollow Knight No Major Glitches, and Mario Kart 8. But past this point is where you get the really good stuff, the best of the best. These next few runs are in a class of their own in terms of domination percentage. Let's start off with the Red Ball 12 level record. Yeah, you thought I wouldn't bring up Nifsky again, but here he is. Turns out if someone does 19 frame perfect inputs needed for Apollo 11 on train, you save 3 whole seconds on a 2-minute speedrun. And you know what? If it was anyone, I'm not surprised it's Nifsky who pulled it off with a whole 1.7% lead on the rest of the field. This incredibly difficult trick lands the Red Ball record at the top of the top in domination percentage. Celeste players probably saw this one coming, but with Secure Account being the only player with a sub 25-minute speedrun and a 43-second lead, it gets a whole 2.8, and that's just their current score. Going back, they've been such a dominant force in any percent speedrunning that basically any number of these records could return something incredible percentage-wise. It really says something about a player's skill if they're that much faster than the runner-up in a speed game that's already as competitive as Celeste. So by now, I think we've laid out a general blueprint for what a game and run needs to score high on the domination percentage so far. A high skill run performed by one of the best runners in the world on a game or category that is hopefully decently short, so that brings us all the way back to Mario 64 Zero Star. Yep, it started with Suigi and now it ends with Suigi. A 12-second lead on a 6.5 minute run returned a gargantuan 3.17 percentage. This run really just does it all, even despite being on SM64, which has a decent amount of time spent inside of cutscenes. This run really is just a build-up on his last Zero Star world record of 6:16, but beating that run in the first place is an incredible achievement, and even in this completely BS made-up graph, Suigi shows us that he's just the best that there ever was. Wait, what's that over there? Drip 120's RSG world record, 7 minutes 1 second, returns a monstrous 4.7% on the scale. He is 20 seconds ahead in a 7-minute speedrun. The items, the stronghold, one of the fastest end entrances ever, all of it came together with an elite runner to make for one of the most dominant world records in speedrunning. And you know what? I think I'm good to end this video on that note. Subscribe and see you later.